Today, I'm going to teach you how to effectively teach a letter, its sound, how to write the letter in an engaging and effective way. I'm going to be showing you how to actually teach the letter M, and then throughout the video as well, I will show you the articulation piece, which is going to be super important when you are teaching a letter. So you want to make sure you watch until the very, very end so that you can make sure that you are saying these letters correctly. So with every single letter lesson, I always am going to start my lessons off giving them some sort of an objective. So this is telling them what they should be able to do by the time this lesson is over. So I might say something like, today we are going to be learning the letter M. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to tell me the name of the letter, the sound of the letter, and write the letter. So I'm telling them what I'm going to expect from them so that I know that they have learned the letter M. So when I first start the lesson, like I said, I will start with some sort of phonological awareness piece. So I gave them their objective of what they need to be able to do. Now, I think that phonemic awareness is the very most important piece to all of the phonological awareness skills. However, I do think that there are some important skills that they need to know, like how many words are in a sentence, syllable segmentation and blending, and then, like I said, that phonemic awareness, blending and segmenting piece. Those are really the most important pieces. If you're not sure how to do that, I do have another video on phonological awareness that I can link down below so that you can check that out if you are interested. But at the beginning of a lesson, I might choose to have them start by just telling me beginning sounds in words. So I might say, I have the word map. Map. Can you say map? Map. What sound do you hear first in the word map? And ask them what that is, and they are going to say Now you can do this with a couple of words. So again, I would say I have the word man. Man. What's the beginning sound you hear in the word man? And they would say So that's a beginning sound. That's an easier skill. And then I would go into phonemic awareness. So then I would say, I'm going to tell you a word and I want you to tell me the sounds in the word. So for example, if I said the word mat, can you say mat? Mat. Can you tell me the sounds in that word? And they would say ah, t. Now I would do that with a couple of words. Again, I have the word ham. Can you tell me the sounds in the word ham? And they would say, Now the next step would be, I'm going to tell you the sounds. Can you tell me what the word is? So I might say the sounds are What's the word? And they would say man. Or I would say the sounds are d. What's the word? And they would say mud, right? So I'm practicing this skill that they're going to need when they go to read and spell later on. So you're really setting these foundations for what they're going to need later on. And so this is a great skill that I practice before I even teach them the letter. So now I'm going to get into teaching them the letter. These are the mnemonic cards that I use to teach every single letter. The mnemonic devices help our brains to remember the thing that we are learning, right? And so this is what I use, and I have these on my website, so if you are interested, you can check these out. But I would say this is the letter M. It says Can you say its sound with me? Now this is where the articulation piece comes in handy, because with articulation, we have many words that we might form the same in our mouth, but the way that we are doing it, whether it be nasally, whether it be unvoiced or voiced, will change how we say the letter. So for example, we have the letter F and V, right? And they say two different sounds, but we form them the same in our mouth. So when I say the F sound, I'm only using my breath, but I'm biting my lip. If I say the V sound, now I'm using my voice box, right? So M is actually a nasally sound. So when I say if I was to plug my nose, It's really, really hard to say that sound. And so that kind of helps them to identify what they're using. Are they using their breath? Are they using their voice box? Are they kind of using their nose? It's super important. Then I want to talk about, what are my lips doing? What are my teeth doing? What's my tongue doing? Again, what's my voice box doing, right? So that they can understand how we are saying the letter. Now, I see this a lot with kids, that they have what some would even say like, oh, they have an articulation issue, right? They can't say certain sounds correctly. And a lot of the time, some of these kids, if I practice with them how to say the sound and we explicitly talk about what is happening in our mouth, with our tongue, with our teeth, with our voice box, it corrects itself pretty quickly, especially when you're practicing it in isolation. Now, once they start talking, in sentences and things like that, that's when it starts to come back a little bit more. And some kids, you need some speech services to correct that. However, if we nip it in the butt early on, then it's going to be a lot better. So I usually will model to them like, what are my lips doing? What are my teeth doing? You can also give them a mirror so that they can see that their mouth is matching your mouth. And they can feel their voice box down here on their neck to see if it's vibrating or if it's not vibrating. Because a lot of kids like to say, huh, right? Instead of, huh. So doing that articulation piece as we're talking about the sound. Now, I would tell them to help us remember what the name and sound of this letter is. I'm going to have a saying for every single letter. The saying for this one is M, map, Can you say it with me? M, map, Remember, what's your mouth doing? M, map, Can you do it by yourself? Can you do it by yourself again? So that is my mnemonic device. Now, if you wanted to create an action or something that goes along with it, you can totally do that as well. But this is going to be super helpful to get them to remember each of the letters. Now, there's people out there that are like, don't use mnemonic devices. Just have them tell you the name or the sound of the letter. And most importantly, the sound, because that's what we use when we are reading. Yes. However, I've never had an issue with a child using a mnemonic device. And when they go to read, they go M, map, A, apple, ah. I've never had them do that when they're trying to sound out words. And if they are doing that, then that means you need to explicitly tell them when we're reading words and spelling words, right? We just do our sounds. So when I'm reading a word, at, right? So I've never had an issue. So if anyone says that they've had an issue, they aren't explicitly teaching them how to sound out words. So once I have done the saying with them multiple times, I am going to be done with that. And now we're going to talk about the different uppercase and lowercase that they're going to see in these letters. So I have an uppercase and lowercase page. I actually have it for free on my website. So I will link all of the resources that I have that I'm talking about down below as well. So you can see that. But I have upper and lowercase letters that I just print off and cut out. And I put them in little baggies. So it's super simple for me to get out. If you do have like foam letters or magnet letters, at least, you want at least 3 uppercase and 3 lowercase so that they can sort those. But if you don't have that, you can simply just print and cut. It takes me like 2 seconds to print and cut and put into Ziploc bags. I would show them, and you can either write it out or you can just show them with the card. And I would say, this is an uppercase M. What's this letter? Uppercase M. I see this letter at the beginning of a name. I see it at the beginning of a proper noun. If they didn't know what a proper noun was, you could tell them that. Or I might see this at the beginning of a sentence. This is uppercase M. What's this letter's name? And you would have them say uppercase M, and I have them do it a couple of times. And then I would show them, this is lowercase m. What's this letter? Lowercase m. the lowercase letters are the letters I'm going to see the most when I'm reading and when I'm spelling. This is lowercase m. What's this letter? They would tell me lowercase m. So once we've talked about what are these different letters, I will mix up their little sort cards, and I usually even have them mix it up. It's just really fun for them. So they set it out on the table, right? And I'm going to have them sort. So as they're sorting it on the table, they're going to say uppercase M. If you wanted to, you could also have them say the sound uppercase M, and then they're going to sort next to each other or next to it, right? Lowercase m. Now they don't have to do it that way, right? Obviously, there's going to be a row of uppercase and a row of lowercase. So this is really just getting them to differentiate between the upper and lowercase letters. They're saying its name multiple times and they're saying its sound multiple times. So that is going to help them to differentiate between the two of them because that is super important. So now we're going to go into the penmanship piece. We're going to be talking about how we write our letters. Now, with this, I do have these for free on my website as well. So I have this handwriting board right here. This is going to be like a thicker line. This is going to be helpful for kids that need to have that bigger space when they're first learning how to write their letters, just because their fine motor skill is not quite developed enough to have them writing like really itty bitty. It takes them time to get really good with those muscles and get those strong. And so you can use this as a scaffold in the beginning to where it's a lot bigger and they can use this. I actually just print them and laminate them and I can use them over and over again. But I also do have this board as well. And it's just got the skinnier lines. Now, the thing I love about my boards is that on each side, it does have these little symbols, and these little symbols actually help them so that they can remember where each letter is going to start and where it's going to end, so that they don't have to guess. It also gives them a starting point, because we always want to talk about, first of all, when we write our letters, we always are going to start at the top or at the skyline or at the sun, whatever you want to call it. And then we're also going to start on the left and go to the right. So I'm always starting on this side because oftentimes you will have kids that sometimes want to start over here, but it does matter where we start our letters. So really having that discussion with them as well, as far as where the letter is going to start when you're forming it and where all of our letters always start when we are writing, right? So we go from left to right just as we read. So when I am writing a letter, I do have sayings for every single letter. I actually have handwriting pages that go along with this. This is actually in a curriculum that I'm going to talk about in just a minute, but it has the explanation of how we write each letter. I like to keep this the same every single time just because it's more consistent. The more consistent you can be in the way that you teach them to write the letters, the easier it's going to be for them. If you're constantly changing how you're telling them how to write the letters, it makes it a lot harder. You don't have to use these sayings. The most important piece, like I said, is that we understand that we start at the left, we start at the top, whether that be this bold line or the dashed line, and then for our other letters that come down into the basement, right? So we're talking about these different things with each of these letters. So if I was teaching a child how to write each of the letters, I'm going to do both uppercase and lowercase. And so I generally, when I'm teaching a lesson, will have these boards available for the students. So I will show them first and then I have them do it. So I would be talking to them about how we're going to write the uppercase M. So with uppercase M, I'm going to start at the sun. So I'm always telling them what I'm doing first. I start on the left and I point at the sun. I'm going to go down to the grass line, pick up my pencil, point to the skyline, go slide down to the mountain line, up to the sun line, and down to the grass line. So they always have this saying that will be the same for the letter, right? So that was uppercase M. I might do it one more time. Okay, I'm going to start at the sun line, go down to the grass line, pick up my pencil, go back to the sun line, go down to the mountain line, up to the sun line, and down to the grass line. That is uppercase M. Now I'm going to try lowercase m. Now lowercase m is going to start at the mountain line. So he starts at this dotted line. Remember, we start on the left side. I start on the mountain line, go down to the grass line, up to the mountain line, give it a hump, down to the grass line, up to the mountain line, give it a hump, and down to the grass line, right? So I'm showing them how I'm going to be writing that. And then again, I could do it again. I start at the mountain line, go down to the grass line, up to the mountain line, down to the grass line, up to the mountain line, down to the grass line, right? So I'm showing them how to do it. Now, one thing that you can start having them do as well is teaching them finger spaces. So every time they write a letter, their finger has to fit between the letters. So they can usually put their finger here on the board, and then they can start writing after their finger, and that just helps them to make sure that they're spacing, because spacing is an important piece when we go to actually writing words. So that is something that you can also talk about. So after I have showed them how to write their uppercase and lowercase letters, I will say, okay, now it's your turn, and I want you to write your uppercase M's and your lowercase M's. So write your uppercase M 3 times, write your lowercase M 3 times, and as I'm watching them write, I will make sure, one, that they're holding their pencil correctly. So this is one way that I do it. If you have them hold the bottom of the point of the pencil, and then you flip it that way, so they're just really soft, you hold the point and you flip it, it holds here, and then they hold their pencil like so. Now there is different variations of how they're going to hold the pencil. The only thing I would say, there are some kids that kind of have this like double joint, and they like to try, I can't do it because I don't have a double jointed finger, but they'll try to hold their pencil like that, and their fingers are like indented. Those kids could benefit from a pencil grip. If you just go on Amazon and type in the word pencil grip, you can get a pencil grip that will help them to hold their pencil correctly. Also, fatter markers or fatter pencils, those are also helpful for young kids because they have that, they have more of a grip on it. So those are kind of some tips when you are working on penmanship. After I have had the students do the penmanship piece, I might move on to an independent piece. So I've taught them the letter's name, the letter sound. We talked about the upper and lowercase letters. We wrote the letters, and now it's time to do it on their own. I have this independent practice piece here. I have the mnemonic device up here, so you could hand this to them and say, you could help them and say, okay, say it, and they just say it on their own. M, map, Okay, I want you to trace it with your finger. Now they're going to trace it with their finger. They can say the saying if they would like. Start at the sun, go down, pick up my pencil, start at the sun, go down to the grass line or mountain line, up to the sun line, and down to the grass line, and so on and so forth. And then here you can get them a pencil and they actually trace it, or if you've laminated these, you can use a marker and they trace the letters. And then down here, this is differentiating the letter M amongst these other letters, as well as uppercase and lowercase, and then also using different font. That's super important so that they get exposed to the way that the letter M might look in different fonts. And then I have that beginning sound piece again, so we're really identifying that sound for the letter M, so coloring the pictures that start with the sound. And then down here, I have a silly sentence for every single letter. With the silly sentence, you can read it to them, and maybe they can touch their nose every time they hear the sound if you wanted to do that. Or you could just simply tell them color or highlight or circle, whatever, the letter M every time you see it. So they have uppercase M in here, lowercase M in here. And this piece I think is really, really important because that kind of brings it back to the why. Why are we learning letters? We're learning letters so that we can read and write with them. And so once you've got that independent piece done, that is your letter lesson. That is it. Now, I generally will teach a letter a day. That's how I do it. That's what research shows is the very best. Teach a letter a day, review frequently. So you might go through the entire alphabet multiple times. But one tip that I do have is that this is why my mnemonic cards are so, so helpful, because I can use this as a review so quickly. If I have these cards and I've got all of these letters that my students have learned, I can simply, before a lesson, just have them say it. M, map, U, up, T, table, T, P, pig, p, E, ed, eh, right? So they're constantly getting that review with all the letters that you have taught them already. So these are super, super helpful. That is really the simplicity of teaching a letter lesson. It really doesn't have to be that complicated. And every single resource I talked about, I have available on my website. Let's talk about articulation really quickly though, because it is so important. So I'm actually going to use my mnemonic cards to show you what each letter should sound like. Your dialect might change that a little bit, and that's okay. If you say a letter differently because of your dialect, that's okay. Just make sure that you're understanding what your lips are doing, what are your teeth doing. But there are a couple of letters, and I will talk about that you need to make sure that you are saying the way I'm saying it, just because of whether or not it's voiced, unvoiced, and so on and so forth. So let's talk about articulation. This is really where we are discussing what's happening in our mouths, what's happening with our voice box, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to go through and say each letter, and then we're going to talk, is it voiced or unvoiced? Or is it stop, or can it go on forever? So the letter C, I always teach as a basic k sound, right? When I'm saying k, think about what your lips and tongue and teeth are doing. This one is unvoiced and it's a stop sound. It cannot go on forever. A lot of people like to say this sound as ka. There's no it's k, right? So make sure you're saying that correctly. Again, what's your mouth doing? This is unvoiced. You will not say fa. It's f. Again, my jaw doesn't drop. I use my breath. D. Don't drop your jaw. It's not duh. It's d. Right? So again, really emphasizing that I'm using my voice box. D. Can't go on forever. These are kind of some of the letters that I'm saying. You need to make sure you're saying it correctly because it's a breath sound, right? We're not adding any of our voice box. This one, our jaw's not dropping. You shouldn't be saying duh. We don't say duh-og, right? We say dog. D. Again, they love to add an sound. Don't let them. It's not huh, it's b. Again, I'm not dropping my jaw. B. What's your tongue doing? They like to get M and N confused, but if you talk about what your tongue is doing and what your lips are doing, then it's helpful because they don't get those sounds confused anymore because they know what their mouth should be doing. Again, this can go on forever, but it's not using my voice box. Not It's very different. This is going to be a hard one for most of 5, 6, and even sometimes 7-year-olds because the muscle in their mouth is not quite developed enough for them to say the sound. And it's a little bit more back in your throat. So make sure you're not saying It's It's a little bit different. O, k, g, w. Again, they like to go w, w. See how my jaw didn't drop? W. V. Again, this is the F and V confusion, right? F, no voice. V, voice. V. Our lips and tongue and everything else does the exact same except for our voice box changes. J. Qu. Now, Q actually says 2 sounds. K, w. So if you were to slow it down, so it's important that when you're talking about Q, which I always do Q, U, Qu, because they are friends, and I explain this explicitly, but Qu. So you have to discuss, you're kind of saying a K and a W, like the W sound, right? So you're saying 2 sounds in your mouth, and so it changes the way you're saying it. So having them do it in slow-mo. Qu, Qu, right? That's how you say Q. Y, y, z, x. X is another one. You're saying 2 sounds. You're saying a k, s sound. So when you're talking about the letter X, make sure they're understanding that they're saying 2 different sounds. K, s, right? X. Ah. Ah. I. Now, I and E. You can solve a lot of problems with the confusion between I and E if you talk about articulation and what's happening in your mouth. So when I say it's more of a straight line. When you draw an I, you draw a line, right? When I say my mouth opens more. So really talking about, well, is it an I or is it an E? What is your mouth doing? See the difference in it? So really talking about that difference can help a lot of kids differentiate between I and E. P, t, So like I said, articulation with letters is so, so important. It's going to make learning their letters so much easier and memorable because that connection from body to sound is super, super important. So make sure you are articulating it correctly. Now, if you've gotten through this entire video, bravo. I love that you have learned how to teach a letter. Now, you might be thinking like, oh my goodness, I don't know if I can remember how to do all of this. I have got you. I actually created a curriculum with parents in mind, as well as teachers, but parents, you can get these detailed lessons exactly as what I just showed you in my curriculum. It has everything I said with script. So you don't have to think about it. I show you pictures with which resources, which in this curriculum, you get all of the resources that I just used in one curriculum with a bunch of extra activities that are gamified so that you can review these letters super, super easily, as well as a multisensory piece for review. So you get these detailed lesson plans, you get all of the resources that I just talked about. You don't have to know a thing about teaching letters and sounds because I have it all laid out for you. And all you need to do is do a little bit of prep by printing a couple of things, maybe cutting out a couple of things. And if you would like to, you can laminate them. It just makes it so that you can use it over and over and over again. And it makes it super, super simple so that you can do this without having to even think about it. And as you get really good with each of these lessons, it'll be like second nature. It also comes with assessments so that you can track your child's progress. It comes with a fun map so that your child can track their own progress, because that's super, super important. And for teachers, I'm an educator. I understand that there are times where you have an aide that comes into your room. You need a resource to be able to hand them for small group. And maybe your school doesn't provide that. I've been at schools where they don't provide a resource and I have to come up with the resource that I'm giving my aides. This is going to be super simple to say, you know what? I have kids that need to know their letters. Here is the resource. Here you go. And you don't have to teach them the skills, because I know there are a lot of aides that they get handed stuff and they're like, I don't know how to teach this. You don't have to worry about that anymore. You just print it, give it, and you know it's going to be effective and engaging. Even if you had a parent volunteer in your class, I've had parent volunteers come in and I've had the feeling of, oh no, I don't know what to give this parent. They are there to really support you and to help you out. And if you can say, hey, I want you to pull Johnny and I want you to work on letters, here is the resource. You don't have to teach them anything. It's super, super simple. So I wanted to make this resource effective, engaging, and easy for anyone to just pick up and use so that you can effectively teach kids letters and sounds, because we need to make sure that we are setting the foundations so that they can move on to being effective readers and writers. I hope that you found this video helpful. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that you're notified when I drop new episodes on my podcast or new educational videos like this one. If you like that video, go ahead and give it a like. And if it was helpful, leave a comment down below. We'll see you next time.